So we didn't touch on complete communities. And like you said, maybe even more controversial than the ADU bonus program.
Anybody who hates the ADU bonus program is going to lose their mind if they know about the complete communities program.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's talk about exactly this complete communities. And I want to know what you have to think about this and if it makes you angry or excited. So what was the intent behind complete communities?
The intent of the complete communities overlay zones, I guess we'll call them overlay zones, or the complete communities program, is to add much more density than the base zone would allow.
And density based on floor area ratio or unit count?
Well,
it's both.
It's both.
But is there, I think from what I've seen from complete communities, is it depending on the tier, your FAR, it goes up, exponentially.
And I think that's why people are going to be really mad if they knew about it. It's just for some reason, it seems to fly under the radar. But by our office on 30th Street in North Park, if you drive down 30th Street and look, 1 or 2 blocks in any direction, you'll see almost a dozen of these complete communities projects going in. Those are the big multifamily mixed-use projects that are going in along 30th. In a nutshell, the way the program works is the city has identified different areas that give you different tiers of the complete communities benefits. I suppose the reason why they have indicated these areas is because there's mass transit, although it doesn't directly correspond with the SDA or TPA zone the same way the ADU bonus program does. So if you are in one of these complete community overlay zones, you could have a huge increase on your floor area ratio. So your floor area ratio could go from like a 1.5 to maybe like a 5.
Insane.
Like this is not doubling
Yeah.
the size of the biggest structure you could build. In a lot of cases, it's tripling or 4 or 5 times as many. It eliminates a height restriction. So you have no height restriction.
Unless you're in the flight path or something.
The FAA is now the height restriction. So it's not a zoning related height restriction. It's like an FAA.
Got it.
Which you'd probably know more about than me.
Well, so let's just use as an example, because I have a client of mine that has been started developing in like the Hillcrest, Mission Hills, Bankers Hill area, pre-complete communities. And now this is, I think Mayor Faulkner had put this into place or had approved this, or it was his idea or whatever the case was. But, the height restrictions were 35 or 60 feet previously. So those are out the window.
They're gone. Now you're going to be strategically, you have to plan the building so it makes financial sense.
Because the type of construction changes when you get over a certain height.
Right. So there's still limitations. You're probably going to see a lot of 5-story buildings because you'll have ground floor commercial, which is built with a higher construction type. And then everything, the 4 levels above will be residential, which would be built with like wood frame construction. So you'll see a lot of 4/1s, I think. But the other thing it does is it removes the density. So all base zones essentially are going to say in this base zone, you can build 1 dwelling unit per 1,000 square feet. And that would be a medium level density zone.
So let's use a 10,000 square foot lot as an example.
Okay, 10,000 square foot lot. Let's say the FAR was 1.5. Now, all of a sudden with complete communities, your FAR is 5.
So you went from a 15,000 square foot to a 50,000 square foot building.
Yep.
Okay.
And now let's look at density. So density could have been 1 dwelling unit per 1,000 square feet.
So 10.
10.
Okay.
But now there's no cap on density. The only restriction on density is your floor area ratio.
Okay. So how many units can you fit into 50,000 square feet?
Yes. And you can make small units. You can make big units. It's up to you. It's up to the developer.
With no height restriction, potentially, if someone wanted to go 8 stories.
Right.
Okay.
And this exists in single family zoning.
Okay.
And multifamily zoning. Now, I'm not here to say it's a good program or a bad program. I think it's all in the way you use the program.
Yeah.
But it's basically a pay-to-play program.
Okay.
So the developer is either going to pay the city money to use this program, which the city is supposed to take and put into the parks fund.
So there's an additional cost for complete communities projects.
There's 2 ways to get into the program.
Okay.
Either the cost, or instead of paying the money for the parks fund, you could basically give your own park.
Okay.
Which seems like a liability nightmare that I think most developers would avoid.
Yeah.
Plus,
they'd rather just pay the money.
Also, if you're trying to build the biggest building possible, you don't want to use some of that land to build a park.
Okay. So that's crazy. So what about parking?
Parking is independent. So if you're in certain overlay zones, you can eliminate parking.
Okay. So someone could potentially build 100 units on a property, have ground floor retail, which I think would be a benefit, have no parking, and 5 years ago, they couldn't have built more than 10 units on that property.
Yep.
Wow. And so have these projects, they've been popping up everywhere. Have these projects started seeing completion?
Yeah. So probably about last year, you're seeing the first completed projects of the Complete Communities program roll out.
Okay.
But the other main benefit to the developer, and probably the biggest surprising thing to the casual homeowner, is that this is a buy right process.
Yeah.
So the community gets no buy-in. It's not a discretionary permit. It's a buy right permit, which is in the developer's best interest because it streamlined the permitting to have a buy right process where you don't have to schedule different meetings and take community input. But it's also something that's going to be very inevitably controversial to the community.
Yeah. So let's use an exact scenario that's going on just down the street from my office here in Del Cerro. So there's a project on Del Cerro Boulevard. This is one of 2 parcels that is in the Complete Communities overlay, which if you look on a map, there's literally nothing else anywhere close, north of the 8 freeway, which is wild that these 2 parcels fall into that. The owner, it's an acre parcel, and he was going to build or wants to build or started the permit process to build, and now the property's on the market, but he was wanting to build using Complete Communities to build like 150 units. And this is a neighborhood where it's mostly single family homes. It's mostly people that are either have been in their houses since the 50s or new families that are coming in because of the schools are so great. And it's by right. And he started the process and the neighborhood caught wind of it and they wanted to fight it, but there was literally nothing they could do. And it's very interesting to see projects. I get it. If you're in these metropolitan areas, if you're in these areas where maybe there's public transportation, kind of like your Main Street property, people can bike to work, walk to work, it's all right there. Great walkability, North Park as well. But then you get to these neighborhoods where you're building like the guy who built the 30 ADUs. You're putting this smack dab in the middle of a huge residential single family home development. There's no parking. There's really no, you're 2 miles from San Diego State, but there's no great infrastructure for people to get there. And there's nothing anyone in the neighborhood can do about it.
It can be frustrating, I'm sure. The success of those projects, in my opinion, comes down to basically 2 things. If you're going to be trying to market a unit without parking, what does the rental market say about that?
Yeah.
So can you get a tenant?
Yeah.
Or maybe you can't get a tenant and then you've made a big mistake.
Yeah.
But really, I think ultimately in the grand scheme of things, the success of these giant projects comes down to the success of the future of mass transit in San Diego, which is kind of stagnant.
Yeah. It's still TBD because you're exactly right. San Diego has remained a very car-focused city. Car-dependent, I guess, a better way to put it.
Now, do you think a project like that would work well if it was right outside a trolley stop?
I do. I think that project, so the client that I have who's doing these projects, they're in a metro area. So public transportation is more available. They have built-in co-working spaces. So they've literally made it so you can go to whatever floor in this building and go to work. So people can, if they're just out of college, if they're relocating to San Diego, say they're coming and they have the ability to work remotely. And they want to still be in San Diego and enjoy everything that there is, they're able to take advantage of that and not be car dependent. So I do think there are scenarios or situations where it can make sense. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Like San Diego State built, I was going there when they built the trolley stop. And the thought was, people can live in all these other different places and take the trolley to school and it would get rid of traffic. It didn't do anything for traffic. I think there's still a big shift that needs to happen from a mindset standpoint for public transportation to start working. I don't know how widely accepted, self-driving cars are going to be, and if that's going to maybe be the shift where people say, okay, great, I can just take a self-driving Uber to work every day and I don't need a car. I don't know. I think only time will tell.
So it seems like the biggest concern about these types of developments is really what happens with traffic and parking.
Agreed. Yeah. I don't think it's the number of people living there. I think that's if nothing else, especially in these, higher density areas, it's a benefit. It's better for the businesses. There's more restaurants that can come along. There's more retail shopping, for all the different types. And I think it's a huge benefit.
Yeah. There's one that's going up right next to my house on Imperial, where we have the trolley running through.
Yeah.
It's literally across the street from the trolley stop. I don't think there's any parking. Yeah. And I think it'll be a great project for the neighborhood. The one thing about parking, basically, I think you're right. Like, if you can decouple the requirement for driving from these projects, then you probably have a much less complaints about these projects.
Yeah.
And probably much more successful projects.
I personally think that there's going to be lots of vacancy, but I think that people are still so car dependent, and I don't know if the work from home is something that will happen forever. I mean, you've seen Horton Plaza. That's, not being finished. And maybe they may give it back to the bank. And that was supposed to be a massive tech hub, and there were going to be tons of jobs, which would have been perfect for people to ride their Lime bikes, which don't exist anymore, or bird scooters, or, whatever's to work. Yeah, I think it's an only time will tell sort of deal.
I have an employee who rides an electric scooter from downtown to North Park every day.
From downtown to, and how do they get there? Do they go up Park?
He kind of zigzags in between the streets.
Yeah.
But the bike lanes are a huge advantage. I know they're kind of controversial, but they're a huge advantage to him.
Yeah.
And there was a time when I worked in the Spreckles building downtown, and I
remember that office.
I would use the bird scooter to go from my house in Logan Heights downtown. It was like about 3 miles.
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of exhilarating to ride it in the morning.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I was in Austin for a conference and rode a bird scooter to the conference every day. And then after rode a bird scooter to the breakout meetings and the dinner and all that kind. And it was rad. Yeah. It was super cool. It's just whether or not San Diego just needs to get there, and they're going to. It's not, these buildings aren't going to get torn down. So it's going to happen. It just needs to start.
So just to tie it back to the complete communities thing and to put a pin in this, the reason people aren't providing parking is because it's so expensive to 100% provide parking.
Yeah.
And a parking space is almost 200 square feet. So the developer's incentive is to build a bedroom instead of a parking space.
Yeah.
Because it rents for more. A bedroom is about $500 more per month. A parking space maybe $7,500 more per month. So the incentive is there for the bedroom. And then the last thing I should mention about the complete communities program is these are programs that are designed to work on larger lots. If you have a 25 by 140 foot lot, it doesn't matter if you're in complete community zone, because these projects are going to require multiple paths of egress, so multiple staircases, maybe an elevator.
Got it.
Lots of things. These are bigger projects, and that's what you see in North Park. The developers are buying the entire
They're assembling.
block.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Bigger projects.
I think for anyone watching this, it's not like the ADU situation. It's more so it's big lots that people are buying. And that's, I don't think it's should be something scary. Oh my God, they're complete communities and here's what we're doing. It's just another thing that's going on in San Diego. And the intent is more housing. The intent is let's try and figure out how to get people off the street. I think, unfortunately, the cost is still very high. Rents are still very high. So even though you're, adding housing, it's not affordable for a lot of people.
Right.
That's a conversation for another day.
Different conversation.
Yeah, exactly right. Cool. That was awesome.